That'll be $50,000, thanks, gloats the Sydney Morning Herald over a bill that's apparently Milo Yiannopoulos and his promoters going to be charged down under in Australia because there were problems at one of his gigs. There always are, and they're always caused by left-wingers. Anyway, the rest of the headline says, police to bill alt-right. Milo is not alt-right. They hate him. Alt-right identity over protests. Well, that doesn't even make much sense as a headline. Anyway, let's click on the article. And this article is from today, and it's Melissa Cunningham. She's the writer here. And I've noticed as I clicked on the article, I've gone over to a different webpage, theage.com.au, which I believe is the sister publication of the Sydney Morning Herald. Anyway, the headline now is Milo Yiannopoulos and his promoters will be billed at least $50,000 by Victoria Police for protests. Right-wing provocateur Milo Yiannopoulos and his promoters will be slapped with a bill to cover the costs of the police numbers required to handle violent protests outside the shows in Melbourne. Hundreds of left and right-wing protesters gathered in front of the Melbourne Pavilion on Racecourse Road and Stubb Street Monday night, where they faced off and fought with sticks. Now, the police here are claiming that there was offensive behaviour from both sides. Well, I'm just wondering who committed the actual violence, because it's almost always the leftist. If they're not spraying pepper spray, I mean, you've all seen it, pepper spraying women in the face, they're bashing people unconscious with bike locks, and they take flagpoles, of course, with them. Anyway, riots police stormed the protests and used pepper spray to subdue the crowd, which included members of left-wing group Campaign Against Racism and Fascism and right-wing groups Reclaim Australia and the Freedom Party. Left-wing group Campaign Against Racism and Fascism. I don't know this particular group, and so naturally I make no accusations, but groups describing themselves as being anti-racist and anti-fascist, I don't know what their definition of fascism is. I mean, I thought that part of it was shutting down people's free speech, which of course these left-wingers always want to do, shutting down free speech and using violence. I thought that's the definition of fascism. Maybe they were all peaceful. I don't know, but it seems not. And they complain about racism. So I wonder what this particular group's definition of racism would be. And so I can't make any accusations because I don't know this particular group. But when it comes to the left wing in general, their definition of racism, I'm going off on a bit of a tangent here, is anyone who protests to more immigration into their country. Well, this country is massively overcrowded. We have mass unemployment, and yet the government are determined to, no matter what garbage they say to the contrary, to allow it to continue to be flooded with people that we don't need. There are far more people who are available to work than there are jobs available. The most stupid thing you do as a country under those circumstances is allow more people in to compete for these jobs. But of course, this is exactly what the globalists and the so-called anti-racist organisations want. God knows. I mean, draw an analogy. You know, they say, okay, you don't want immigrants coming in because these ones from Africa or the Middle East are black and brown, therefore you hate them because they're black and brown. No, I don't hate them at all. I just want to protect my country. It's called self-preservation. It's called territoriality in the animal kingdom, and all animals, as far as I'm aware, practice it. You take a lion, for example, on the Serengeti, and he has a pride of three female lionesses and his cubs, and he has to protect his territory. Now, another lion comes along, and he doesn't have this harem of lionesses to have sex with and breed with, and he wants to challenge the male lion. Now, the male lion stands up for his territory, and he fights, and he either wins and sends the other guy off, or he loses and he has to run off his own territory, in which case the newcomer kills the cubs and then mates with the lionesses, or one of them dies in the fight. But at least he puts up some kind of a fight. And if you look at the wimpishness of males throughout the Western world in allowing these left-wing organisations to make false accusations of racism, and people are so cowed that they won't speak up for themselves. They're so cowardly. It's pathetic. It is the left wing who, as far as I'm concerned, by my definition of racism, they are the racists. Anyone who wants to flood their country with foreign immigrants when the country doesn't need them for job purposes is a bloody racist and a traitor. They are seditious. Anyway, continuing the article. Police and protesters also clashed at Mr. Yiannopoulos' events in Sydney on Tuesday night, resulting in charges against several protesters. There's no information as to whether they're left-wing or right-wing, by the way. The event was heavily guarded with mounted police, officers on bicycles, riot squad, marine police and police vans barricading the event after several arrests were made at his Melbourne show. Now, why should Milo have to pay for this? He's arranged a gig, people are turning up for his gig, and from what I've seen in the past, they do not go there to be violent. They go there to listen to what he has to say. The people who want to shut him down go there violently, with violence aforethought. They want to attack Milo physically, and they want to attack anyone who supports him. They are the provocateurs. And if, for example, you were a Conservative person going along to watch Milo and you're attacked physically by a left-wing scumbucket, it is your right to defend yourself physically according to the best of your ability to fend them off. That's the bloody law. It's called self-defence. Earlier on Tuesday, Mr. Yiannopoulos attended a Q&A session at Parliament House. Victorian Police Minister Lisa Neville told radio station 3AW on Wednesday that up to 300 police were called in to separate the protesters. She said those behind the event would be footing the bill for police resources. They shouldn't have to. Milo is not responsible for the actions of others. He is only responsible for his own actions and his own words. They'll certainly be getting a bill, Ms. Neville said. There were a lot of resources put in, and I've had a lot of interesting tweets sent to me saying what a waste of police resources. But unfortunately in that situation, we've got two groups who pretty much set out to cause the harm that they did. Really? Do you have any proof of this? Can she prove that it wasn't the left who started it? They usually do. And she said they try and cause violence to get on the TV, so police are there to try and protect the general public. Well, the general public pay their taxes to pay for the police to stop thuggery. It's not Milo's responsibility. Anyway, there's a little photo there, and I'll put a link to the article in the comment section and pin it to the top, along with another which I'm going to cover shortly after this. There's a photo there of a group of police officers. They look like they're trying to drive back some protesters, and I'm going to assume that they're left-wing protesters because there seems to be a sign to the left of the photo that says, "Muslims welcome, racists are not." Milo is not a racist. Anyway, skipping down to the bottom of the article, there are more articles here, included one that says, "Alt-right provocateur Milo Yiannopoulos," he's not alt-right, "takes aim at his usual suspects in expletive-laden Melbourne gig." Yeah, you see the spin there, so let's have a look at this one. And this is from a couple of days back, so the previous article was from today. Anyway, this one starts off, Melissa Cunningham. "Controversial alt-right, no. Commentator Milo Yiannopoulos took aim at Indigenous Australians, Muslims and Australian media personalities." Well, thank God for the latter. "In an event in Melbourne marred by violent protesters. Australia, what have they done to you?" Yiannopoulos, 32, asked the crowd as he entered, clad in leather and wearing his trademark sunglasses before getting on the back of a parked Harley-Davidson motorbike in the middle of the stage. Now there's a photograph just under that of a police officer spraying a couple of guys who seem to be wrestling on the ground. And to the left there's a guy with an orange top on, wielding a baton, a stick, and he looks like he's, I don't know, maybe going to bash one of the police officers. Now, I've seen another photo of this particular guy in the orange, and he has a Union t-shirt on, and he is quite clearly a member of the alt-left, and he is clearly wielding a baton. And you can click on that, there's a video. I don't see the point of watching this, but okay, I'll have a look. Well, brief as it was, it seemed to me that it was just the same old story. Left-wingers attacking, and there was one right-wing guy there, conservative guy, trying to defend himself, and it looked to me like the police were trying to fend off left-wingers. If it did indeed prove to be the case that you had conservative people going to watch Milo speak, and they were being attacked by left-wingers, and this left-wing organisation I mentioned earlier in the video, then surely this left-wing organisation, shouldn't they be the ones footing the police bill? And apparently there have been a number of arrests. Well, let's have a look at the charges and see which side these people are on, and whether the police have been even-handed about it, and let them pay. Milo should not have to pay. Free speech should be just that, free, including free of charges. And I'd also extend the same, privilege, same right to left-wing speakers. If genuine alt-right protesters went there and were violent, let them foot the fucking bill. But conservatives very rarely do that. Anyway, Milo continues here in quotations. You used to have a really good reputation, talking about Australians, but we're here to discuss your fall from grace. The right-wing provocateur who attacked Julia Gillard, former Australian Prime Minister and a bitch, as he prepared to embark on his... They don't say that, that's me. As he prepared to embark on his Australian tour, was unapologetic of his criticism of the former Prime Minister at the Melbourne Pavilion in Kensington on Monday night. Why should he be unapologetic? You know, he was unapologetic. Why should he apologise for his political points of view any more than I'd expect Julia Gillard to apologise for her opinions? Police barricaded the outside of the pavilion before the show as those attending the event, some who paid up to $995, bloody hell Milo, for a VIP ticket, were heckled by crowds of protesters as they walked through the doors. It's the same scenario. They're peacefully trying to go about their business and they're heckled by crowds of protesters, left-wingers. And it continues. After the show, patrons had to be escorted by police to their cars. In other words, the left were the ones doing the violence. Let them pay the police bill. Yiannopoulos, who has sold more than 10,000 tickets nationwide, resigned earlier this year from alt-right publication Breitbart News after he appeared to suggest that it was acceptable for older men to sleep with teenage boys. He later issued a rare apology. Okay, he did say some silly things in that interview. Anyway, he was also permanently banned from Twitter in 2016 after he made a series of racist tweets about African-American Ghostbusters star Leslie Jones. He did not make racist tweets. As I recall, Milo wrote a critique of Ghostbusters, and he didn't condemn Leslie Jones. He said that words along the lines of she was playing a racial stereotype in Ghostbusters of the loud, sassy black woman, and it is a racist stereotype. I've seen it before, and I don't blame black people at all for objecting to that kind of stereotyping. So he was actually quite supportive of her. And as for joking about her, I think he said something like, it's nice to see that they cast a handsome black dude in the movie. Something like that. Something that was bloody nothing, but it certainly wasn't racist. So that's absolute bullshit from this rag. Anyway, here's a quote from Milo. This is following on in the article. Now, the Sydney Morning Herald was very upset with me, as were various other left-wing media outlets who condemned my hoarse language. So I would like to set the record straight and apologise to the pricks for the unflattering comparison. Okay, so he's joking around. The self-described one-man wrecking crew and internet supervillain continued his trend of hurling expletive-laden insults about feminists. Yes. And those on the left wing of politics throughout his 3 sold-out Troll Academy tour shows in Melbourne. He took aim at Walkley award-winning journalist and social commentator Waleed Ali, calling him a foghorn who was dedicated to the destruction of Western civilization, before taking aim at his wife, Dr. Susan Cartland. I've no idea who these left-wingers are. There's a photo immediately beneath that of the guy who, with the baton in his sort of orangey shirt, and what colour you'd call it, with "We Are Union." So he's a leftist, and it looks like he's got about 3 police officers holding him down on the pavement. So he looks like he's acted like a bit of a thug. Anyway, quipping about Dr. Cartland, Milo says, "She wears that hijab because she chooses to sister, not because she is the brainwashed victim of a death cult that oppresses women and kills homosexuals." He then joked that if Dr. Carlin didn't wear the hijab, one of her uncles may throw acid on her, and it wouldn't be a good look on the red carpet at the Logies. Now, well, isn't Milo telling a bit of truth there? I mean, I don't call Islam or Muslims a death cult, but can't argue that women apparently have half the value of a man's word in a Sharia court, which I have to confess I don't have much of a problem with that. As for them throwing homosexuals off buildings, well then, yeah, I do have a problem with that. Anyway, Milo went on to attack some feminist blogger called Clementine Ford with a load of insults. Suits me if he's insulting a feminist. And he lashed out about Channel 10 media personality Jessica Rowe. Never heard of her. "I don't say this stuff to be mean because I'm a compassionate person," Milo said. He also took aim at Aboriginal welcome to my country ceremonies and traditional indigenous art, saying, "You're all supposed to pretend you like it, but really it's shit." Well, these are major crimes, are they? The Australian media, if this was in Britain, he'd be arrested and jailed. The Australian media also came in for a tongue lashing. Good, because they're shits, they're scum, like the rest of the media right throughout the Western world. With Milo saying it was a disaster, yeah, it is. You were all just as much a bitter disappointment to me as Don Burke was to you. I don't know the reference there. Anyway, to wrap the article up, it says the talk went on this way for an hour as the audience, made up mostly of men, so what, laughed and cheered each comment. Well, Milo's a brilliant speaker, and he is very funny as well. So, I think I'd sum up by saying that all publicity is good publicity, so this isn't going to do Milo any harm whatsoever. It's almost as if they're going out of their way to help him on his tour of Australia, and I'm very glad that he's down there. And to get an invite to Parliament House, I mean, that's a real privilege. And also, apparently a good number of Australian media outlets, TV channels, wanted to do interviews with Milo, and they backed down, and he challenged them on it, and he said, "Why did you back down?" And the fact is, they're terrified of him because he can handle himself in a debate, and because when they speak like this, when they spin him like this in this Sydney Morning Bloody Herald or whatever, and theage.com, when they spin it like this and give people an incorrect opinion of him, then if he were to speak live on TV, as soon as people actually listen to him, and it would be the same with MRAs and MGTOWs, if we had a chance to speak on TV about our opinions, why we hold them, people who are, in my position, who would be otherwise demonized if I were in the position to get back on radio, and I've done a bit of radio stuff in the past, back in the 90s, and when I was an MRA for the UK men's movement, as it was then, now defunct, and we could only ever get on radio. They'd keep us away from TV because we knew our stuff about, we'd be portrayed as being misogynists, which I must admit I am now. But when they discover that when you're on radio and it's live, and you know what you're talking about when it comes to things like domestic violence and the divorce system, all of a sudden they don't want to speak to you anymore. And the media are pretty much digging their own grave because they can't run and hide from the likes of Milo or MGTOW or men's rights activists forever. Anyway, I've gone on far longer than I thought it was going to do in this. So thank you very much if you got this far. Cheers.